She got anxious when I stopped caring about her and her guy best friend. My wife has a male best friend. They're close. So close they drink milk tea from the same straw, snuggle under the same blanket to watch shows, and even change clothes in the same room. When I asked her to keep some distance from him, she just shrugged it off. She said, if something were going to happen between me and him, it would have happened already. Do you really think you'd even stand a chance if I wanted him? So eventually, I stopped caring who she went shopping with, who she partied all night with. I stopped asking, and that's when she started to get anxious. The door clicked open. I heard the soft clack of high heels on the floor, quiet like she was trying not to wake someone up. You're back, I said without looking up, my tone flat like I was commenting on the weather. Amelia paused, seemingly surprised that I was waiting in the living room. Then she quickly slipped back into her usual casual demeanor, tossed her bag onto a chair, and changed her shoes. The smell of alcohol instantly filled the room. I drank too much at the party last night, ended up sleeping at a hotel. Don't worry, I didn't share a room with anyone. Her voice was slightly guilty, though she tried to act indifferent. I glanced at her. Her makeup wasn't fully removed. The lipstick at the corner of her mouth was smeared. Strands of messy hair clung to her face, and there was a faint mark on her neck she hadn't completely covered. She pulled 2 bottles of coffee from her bag and set them on the coffee table. Brought these for you, Ben. Harris picked the beans. You like his taste, right, Em? I gave a faint hum, picked up the remote, and changed the channel, never once looking directly at her. What's with you? She snapped, standing in front of me. Whenever I come back late, you act like some bitter housewife. And now you're all cool and distant. I set down the remote and looked up, eyes calm and expressionless. I'm not mad. I'm not resentful. As long as you had fun, that's all that matters. She froze, clearly not expecting that answer. Before, whenever this happened, I'd ask why she came home so late or complain about how close she was to Ben Harris. She'd always say I was petty, too controlling. Over time, I just got too tired to argue. She seemed triggered by my indifference and sneered. Don't pretend to be some high-minded saint, Jack Thomas. You're just petty. That's what drives me crazy. I stared at her for a few seconds and suddenly found it funny. She'd said those same words so many times before. I used to try explaining that I cared about her, which was why I minded. But now, even saying one extra word felt like a waste of energy. Whatever. I stood up, my voice detached like I was speaking to a stranger. You're tired. Get some rest. Then I turned and walked into the bedroom, closing the door gently behind me. I knew she stood in the living room for a long time. That confusion, that slight guilt, I could feel it even through the door. But what did it matter to me anymore? Leaning back against the door, I took a deep breath. For the first time in a while, I felt a sense of ease. The tension I had always carried was slowly starting to fade. The next morning, before I left for work, Amelia Cross was already sitting at the table. She wore a slightly oversized set of loungewear. There were still shadows of exhaustion under her eyes, and she cradled a coffee mug, sipping slowly. I was about to head out when she looked up and asked, "Do you have something going on today?" "Yeah, need to handle a few things at the office." I adjusted my watch strap as I spoke. My tone was neutral as always, neither cold nor warm. She set down her coffee and asked softly, "Were you upset last night?" "Upset?" I pulled out a chair and sat down, pouring myself a glass of warm water. "No." She studied me as if searching for clues. "Really? You just went to the bedroom without saying anything. Not even the usual complaints. Honestly, did you stop caring?" I glanced at her and smiled slightly. "I told you as long as you're having fun, there's no need to worry about me." She frowned like my indifference bothered her more than anger would have. "Jack Thomas, what's with the double speak? You're not usually like this. How do you want me to be?" I picked up the glass and took a sip. "Should I say you're too close to Ben Harris again? Or are you just itching for a fight?" She faltered for a moment, caught off guard, but quickly raised her chin in defiance. "If it's a fight you want, fine. I've never been afraid of you." "Then there's nothing to fight about." I stood up, picked up my bag, and headed for the door. "I genuinely don't mind. You don't need to keep bringing it up." She didn't seem convinced and pressed again. "So, you really think there's nothing going on between me and Ben Harris?" I stopped, my tone flat. "Whether there is or not, you know best." She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue, but no words came out. All she could do was watch me leave. At the office, my phone lit up. A message from her. "You're really not mad? Don't you want to ask me about last night?" I stared at the message for a moment, then finally typed back 2 words. "Nope." She didn't reply. I guess it's her first time experiencing what it feels like when someone really doesn't care anymore. That night, when I got home, Amelia Cross was sitting on the couch. The TV was on, but she wasn't watching at all. When I came home, she asked, "Why are you so late today?" "Traffic jam," I said as I took off my coat and hung it up, then walked to the kitchen to get a drink of water. She stared at my back, sounding a bit impatient. "Jack Thomas, are you giving me the cold shoulder on purpose? Trying to make me coax you?" I turned around to look at her, the smile on my face not reaching my eyes. "I'm not giving you the cold shoulder. I just don't feel like asking about your recent business anymore. Are you trying to prove a point?" She raised her voice slightly, irritation creeping into her tone. "Don't treat me like this. I'm telling you, I'm not falling for it. Suit yourself." I walked into the study and shut the door behind me. I left her alone in the living room. At some point, the remote control had been thrown onto the floor. The sound reached me, but I felt nothing. She had tested me so many times, and I never responded. Maybe now she was finally starting to get uneasy. Saturday morning, Amelia Cross got up early. For once, she didn't sleep in. She even went into the kitchen to make breakfast herself. From the kitchen came the clatter of pots and pans mixed with the soft hum of song. When I walked into the dining room, the table was already filled with dishes she'd prepared. Fried eggs, grilled sausages, and a steaming plate of bacon and sautéed mushrooms. The smell lingered warmly in the air. Wearing an apron, Amelia Cross peeked out from the kitchen and smiled at me. "Hurry up and wash your hands. Today's breakfast is a special edition." "Looks good." I nodded, pulled out a chair, and casually picked up a piece of toast to take a bite. She took off her apron and sat across from me, resting her chin in her hands as she watched me. "Does it taste good?" "Not bad," I replied casually and kept eating. She seemed dissatisfied with my attitude. Picking up a spoonful of the mushrooms, she held it out to me. "Try this. I added your favorite black pepper." I glanced at her, but didn't reach out. Instead, I gently pushed the plate forward. "No need to go through all this trouble. I can serve myself." Her hand froze in midair, the smile on her face stiffening slightly before she put down the spoon and asked, trying to sound casual, "Got any plans today? How about we go out for a bit?" I put down my chopsticks and wiped my mouth. "Can't. I've already made plans." "What plans?" she asked instinctively, her tone a bit urgent. "The company hasn't been that busy lately. Why so much going on even on weekends?" I paused for a moment, then calmly replied, "I'm meeting up with a friend I haven't seen in a while." She was visibly taken aback, then asked with a trace of suspicion, "Is it a guy or a girl? Does it matter?" I looked at her. "You don't mind, right? Like you said, friends should be casual with each other." Those words were like an invisible slap, silencing her completely. She lowered her head and started poking at the food on her plate more slowly. After a while, she tried to change the topic. "What about dinner? Should we eat together? I can cook something you like." "Probably won't have time tonight either," I replied just as calmly, standing up and clearing my dishes. "I've been a bit busy lately." "Don't wait for me, Jack Thomas." She suddenly looked up, her voice raised slightly as she struggled to hold it back. "What is going on with you lately? If you're unhappy with me, just say it. Don't treat me like this." "I'm not unhappy." I turned to look at her distressed expression. "I just don't want to live like before, watching your every move. You wanted your own space. I think I deserve some, too." She opened her mouth as if trying to argue back, but didn't know where to begin. All she could do was watch as I grabbed my coat and walked out the door. As I stepped outside, I heard the sound of a chair scraping against the floor. She must have stood up, maybe to come after me, but she didn't call out. The door quietly closed behind me. Later, I found out that she stayed home the entire day, didn't go out at all, and didn't even update her social media. The way she was acting, cautious and unsure, made it pretty clear she was really starting to panic. She was finally beginning to wonder if she had pushed away the one person who had once tried with everything he had to get close to her. Tuesday night, there was an unexpected overtime at work, and by the time I stepped out of the conference room, It was already close to 9 p.m. Just outside the building, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Jack, what are you doing here?" I turned around. It was Emily Johnson, my senior from college. She looked exactly the same as before, shoulder-length curls loosely draped, her usual smile on her lips, eyes glinting with a warm light. "Long time no see, senior," I smiled. "When did you get back?" "Last month." "I'm back for good now," she said as she walked up and patted my shoulder. "You're doing well for yourself these days, huh? Suit and tie. You really look the part now. You're the one who hasn't changed at all. Still look just like back in college." I stepped aside and gestured for her to walk with me. "You just got back. Anything you need help with?" She smiled and shook her head. "No need to be so polite, Jack. I've called you by your nickname for years, and now you're treating me like a stranger." It had been so long since someone called me Jack. Hearing her say it out loud caught me off guard, but I didn't say much, just gave a helpless smile. I got used to it. Not many people call me that anymore since becoming an adult. We chatted about our college days. From our eccentric professors to the fun during sports meets, every memory felt as fresh and easy as if it had just happened yesterday. The nostalgia made me relax, and before I knew it, I'd said a lot more than usual. Just then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Amelia Cross, still at work. I replied casually, chatting with a friend. "I'll be back soon." My senior leaned over and glanced at the screen, smiling as she asked, "Your girlfriend?" I didn't answer, just nodded. She raised an eyebrow slightly and smiled. "You've never mentioned her much. Who's the lucky girl?" "An old friend," I said lightly, not elaborating. After a few more words, we were about to part ways when Amelia Cross suddenly appeared at the company entrance. She must have come to pick me up, not expecting to run into my senior. And she is. Amelia Cross stood a few steps away, her expression calm, but the jealousy in her eyes was impossible to hide. "This is Emily Johnson, my senior from college," I introduced. "And this is my wife, Amelia Cross." Emily immediately greeted her warmly. Amelia returned the smile politely. But no matter how I looked at it, the smile seemed forced. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Emily chuckled and gave my shoulder a light pat. "Well, Jack, I'll be heading off. Let's catch up again soon." "Jack." Amelia repeated the name with a touch of doubt and jealousy in her tone. "Yeah, that's what she always called me back in school." My voice was calm, as if I hadn't noticed her underlying displeasure. On the way home, Amelia pretended not to care and casually asked, "So, you and that senior? Pretty close?" "Old classmates. We had a decent relationship," I replied, still indifferent. She didn't ask further, but her hands were gripping her handbag tightly. Clearly, she wasn't as unaffected as she pretended to be. Later, Emily sent me a message asking if I want to join the alumni gathering over the weekend. I agreed, but purposely didn't tell Amelia. She always said she didn't like me interacting with female friends too much. So, I figured there was no need to trouble her with irrelevant details. Since that day, she'd occasionally bring up Emily in conversation, pretending it was casual, though the jealousy in her tone was obvious. Saturday evening, as I got dressed to go out, Amelia leaned against the doorframe, eyeing my tie. Her tone was airy. "Dressed this formally? Where are you off to?" "Class reunion," I replied flatly, straightening my tie and adjusting my cufflinks. "Which classmate?" she pressed, her voice laced with barely hidden suspicion. "Organized by Emily Johnson. I mentioned her before." I glanced at her as I spoke. She raised an eyebrow and said nonchalantly, "Busy guy. Even your weekends are fully booked, huh?" I didn't respond. I picked up my car keys and walked out. She stood there watching me leave, saying nothing more. But through the peephole reflection, I could tell she wasn't as indifferent as she pretended to be. The gathering was held at a restaurant. Emily had reserved a private room, and the table was filled with familiar faces that made the whole evening feel almost surreal. Seating was informal, and Emily sat beside me. When the food came, she poured me some tea, and I peeled shrimp for her, an old routine from our college days that felt surprisingly natural. "You still remember I like shrimp?" Emily smiled, her eyes curving like crescent moons. "Well, you used to steal all the shrimp off my plate," I replied softly, placing the peeled shrimp on her plate. Someone nearby teased, "Jack Thomas still knows how to treat ladies well." "Emily, you're lucky." I didn't respond, just smiled faintly. Emily didn't mind and joked, "Don't say that. I have a proper husband now." The lighthearted banter didn't mean much to me, but after a group photo was posted on social media, Amelia clearly didn't take it so lightly. Half an hour later, a message popped up on my phone from her. "You two seem pretty close." I glanced at the photo and replied, "Just old classmates. It's a normal gathering." She didn't respond again. But after the party, when I got home, the tension in the air was undeniable. Amelia was sitting on the couch, phone in hand, staring at the screen like she was interrogating a suspect. "Looked like you had a great time. Even peeled shrimp for her personally." I took off my coat, hung it up, and responded lightly. "Just a small gesture." She let out a cold laugh. "Oh, so thoughtful with friends. Funny, I don't remember you being that attentive with me. You used to share a bowl of noodles with Ben Harris, and I didn't say a word." I turned to look at her, my tone still calm. "Besides, you've always said stuff like this between friends shouldn't be taken seriously, right?" She froze, her expression shifting from pale to flushed. "What's that supposed to mean? Are you trying to compare me to her?" "No." I picked up a glass and poured myself some water, sipping slowly. "I'm just following the approach you taught me. Nothing more. Jack Thomas." She suddenly stood up, her voice laced with suppressed anger. "What exactly are you trying to say? Just because I used to be close with Ben Harris, now you're doing all this on purpose to get back at me?" I looked up at her, my expression so calm, it made her uneasy. "I'm not trying to provoke you. Like I said, I just thought you never cared about things between friends." Her composure crumbled. "Friends, that thoughtful and posting on social media. You just want to humiliate me." "Social media? It was just a photo from a class reunion." "Humiliate you?" I let out a cold laugh. "You're overthinking it, Amelia Cross." She glared at me, her lips trembling, but couldn't say a word. She stormed off and slammed the bedroom door behind her. The moment the door shut, I exhaled a long breath, tired yet composed. For the first time in years of arguments, it felt like I'd finally found the balance I had long lost. The next day, Emily posted photos from the reunion on her social media. In the picture, she stood next to me, smiling radiantly. The caption read, "After all these years, Jack Thomas is still as considerate as ever. Glad that hasn't changed." I glanced at it, didn't like it, and didn't comment either. But not long after, Amelia called, "What you doing?" Her voice was dangerously low, like she was holding something back. "I'm at work." "What's wrong?" I set aside the documents in my hand, leaned back in my chair, and kept my tone calm. "What's your relationship with Emily Johnson?" She skipped my question and threw out her own. "She's my senior," I replied lightly. "Didn't I tell you that before?" "Did you see the photo she posted on social media?" Her voice was barely suppressing her fury. "I saw it," I nodded. "Just a normal group photo. What about it?" There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then her voice returned, strained and angry. "Jack Thomas, do you not take our relationship seriously anymore?" I raised an eyebrow, still calm. "Why would you say that? You're seriously asking me that?" She suddenly raised her voice. "Have you even considered how I feel? That photo with your arm around her and the caption. How do you expect me to take that?" "It's just a normal photo," I replied coldly. "And as for your feelings, how strange. Weren't you the one always saying friends don't need to overthink these things? Or does that rule not apply when it's you?" She froze. There was a brief silence. Then her voice exploded again, angrier than before. "You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? Trying to hurt me. You don't even care about me anymore." I listened, but only felt exhausted. Her emotions were like a tangled mess, and I no longer had the energy to untangle them. "Amelia Cross, I'm just treating a friend the way I always do," I said in an unwavering voice. "You've been the one teaching me all along. Be relaxed with friends. Don't be so rigid." "Jack Thomas," she nearly shouted, her voice trembling now. "Do you have to treat me like this? Do you even know what you're doing?" "I know exactly what I'm doing," I replied evenly. "If you think what I did was wrong, then what about all those things you used to say to me? Were they wrong too?" She was speechless. The only sound on the phone was her uneven breathing. "If you really think it's inappropriate, then maybe you should take back all those principles you set," I continued, my voice sharp as a knife. "Amelia Cross, don't forget those rules were yours." She said nothing else before hanging up, but I knew she was shaking with anger. When I got home that night, the lights in the living room were on. Amelia Cross was sitting on the couch, staring at the door, clearly waiting for me. As soon as I walked in, she stood up and came straight to me. "Jack Thomas, we need to talk." "Okay." I nodded and placed my briefcase on the couch. "Go ahead." She stared at me, her eyes red, her voice full of accusation. "Why are you doing this? You knew I wouldn't be happy. Why did you still stay in touch with her?" I looked at her, my tone calm. "You were close to Ben Harris for years, and I never saw you try to avoid that." "That's different," she shouted, unable to hold it in anymore. "He and I grew up together. We're childhood friends. And Emily is my friend, too." I sneered. "Amelia Cross, I've never forgotten the things you've said. But let me ask you, do you really think that just because you make the rules, I have to follow them, while you can break them anytime you want?" Her lips quivered, but she had no response, just glared at me furiously. "If you think I went too far, fine," I said, each word clear and deliberate. "From now on, I'll accept that you don't mind how close I am with my friends." I looked into her eyes. "That's fair, isn't it, Amelia Cross?" She stared at me, tears brimming but refusing to fall. I turned and walked toward the bedroom, leaving her standing there like her soul had been drained. The air behind me was thick with tension, but this time it all felt like it had nothing to do with me. She didn't try to talk to me again. She just left early and came home late every day. I thought she was going to confide in her friends, but to my surprise, she went to see Ben Harris. Ben Harris's social media was always lively, but this time he posted a short video that felt like a slap in the face. In a hotel room, Amelia Cross was leaning on his shoulder, swirling a glass of wine in her hand. The two of them were laughing intimately. The caption was nonchalant. "Old friends are still the best. You could talk about anything." When I saw the post, my heart went completely cold. If he did it on purpose, I couldn't let him get away with it. I didn't contact her, nor did I ask questions like I used to. I just quietly looked up the hotel's address and drove over. The hotel wasn't very large, but it was particularly lively because it was the weekend. I walked through the corridor and soon found their room. I knocked. It opened quickly. Amelia Cross was lying on the bed, her upper body bare, cheeks flushed, clearly a bit drunk. She was leaning in close, her hand tucked into Ben Harris's shirt. He was holding her gently, and they looked perfectly in sync. Standing a few steps away, I took out my phone and calmly hit the record button. The smile on their faces in the video stung my eyes. Jack Thomas. She only noticed me when she turned around. Her smile froze instantly. I didn't respond. I just took another picture of their table, then put my phone away expressionlessly and turned to leave. "Wait, where are you going?" She chased after me, grabbing my wrist, panic in her voice. "Let me explain. It's not what you think. Not what I think." I turned around, allowed a cold laugh. "Then tell me, what exactly did I just see?" "We were just friends," she stammered, her face shifting from panic to wounded. "We were just drinking and chatting." I looked at her and said word by word, "Amelia Cross, this is the last time I remind you. Know your boundaries." With that, I shook off her hand and walked out of the bar without looking back. When I got home, I ignored all her calls and messages. Instead, I organized the photos and videos, posted them on my social media, and added a caption. "So, friend could be this close. Guess I've been too naive." By the next day, the news had exploded. My parents, her parents, our mutual friends, even her coworkers. Everyone knew. Amelia Cross was bombarded with questions. My mother called to scold her for being immature. Friends started looking at her with judgment. Even her colleagues were gossiping behind her back. Ben Harris didn't escape the fallout either. His boss called him in and told him his behavior was damaging the company's image. At home, she cried uncontrollably. Holding her phone, she sent me countless messages begging me to delete the post, but I didn't reply to a single one. I just sat there silently reading her apologies and pleas with not the slightest emotional stir. There was a time when I would lower my pride and forgive her. But now I just wanted to watch from the sidelines as she cleaned up this mess she created. On the third night, after everything blew up, Amelia Cross finally mustered the courage to knock on my study door. She stood at the threshold, eyes swollen red, her face full of exhaustion and regret. Jack Thomas, can we talk? I put down my file, leaned back in my chair, and looked at her calmly. What is it? She stepped in cautiously, closed the door, and stood in front of me. Her voice was choked. Jack Thomas, I was wrong. I know I did something that hurt you. Can you give me one more chance? Chance? I raised my eyebrows, my tone completely void of warmth. Do you think chances are something to be wasted? Tears streamed from her eyes. She bit her lip and stammered. I know. I shouldn't have been so close to Ben Harris. I really messed up. I won't do it again. I promise. Starting today, I'll cut all ties with him. I swear. I didn't say a word. I just stared silently at her falling apart in front of me. Seeing no reaction from me, she suddenly dropped to her knees, gripping my hands tightly. Jack Thomas, I'm begging you. Whatever you say, I'll do it. As long as you forgive me and let me make it right, I'm willing to do anything. I looked down at her, then coldly pulled my hand away. Amelia Cross, this isn't something that can be fixed just because you want to fix it. She froze, eyes filled with desperation as she looked at me. Then what can I do to make you forgive me? We'll see based on how you behave. I stood up and walked to the window, leaving her with nothing but my indifferent back. Cutting ties isn't something you do with a single sentence. And crying doesn't undo what's been done. Her shoulders began to tremble, tears falling silently down her cheeks. But she didn't say anything else, just nodded. Okay, I'll prove it to you. I'll make you believe me. She deleted Ben Harris's contact and publicly posted a status on her social media. I was wrong. I don't want to bring up the past, and I hope no one disturbs me again. She started waking up early to make me breakfast, keeping the house spotless. All those little habits that used to annoy me, like being glued to her phone or always coming home late, suddenly disappeared. On the weekend, she even asked if I wanted to take a walk in the countryside, saying she wanted to help me relax more. I didn't refuse, but unlike before, I didn't act excited either. I just replied calmly, whatever. Along the way, she tried hard to find topics to talk about, trying to ease the tension between us, but I barely responded. Her smile gradually became forced, yet she refused to give up. Every time she tried to get closer, I could see the cautious look in her eyes and deep fear. She was terrified of losing me, afraid our relationship was past the point of return. So, she gave it her all, clinging to even the smallest of my responses. A nod, a quiet, and could visibly relieve her. But I knew it was all just surface level. Her so-called remorse and effort were just ways to keep the version of me she had grown used to. And I was no longer the man who unconditionally tolerated everything from her. This tug of war, she had only just begun, but she was already starting to lose her grip. Amelia Cross's changes lasted over a month. She acted more attentive than ever, making breakfast every morning, coming home on time every night, never mentioning Ben Harris. Her phone was always placed face down. When messages came in, she would swipe them away quickly. On the surface, it looked like she was genuinely trying to make things right, as if she'd drawn a line between herself and the past. But there was something off about her eyes, her movements, and the unease I couldn't ignore. The turning point came on a Saturday night. She said she had to work overtime, but forgot her phone at home. I happened to be home too when her phone buzzed. A WeChat message from a contact with an ordinary name. What time tonight? Don't forget, I booked your favorite restaurant. I stared at the message, gripping the phone tighter as a cold chill crept through me. She came back shortly after, grabbed her phone, and rushed out again. I didn't confront her. I waited a few minutes, then took my keys and drove to that restaurant. It wasn't large, warm lighting and soft ambience. And there they were, right in the corner. Amelia Cross and Ben Harris. They were sitting across from each other, red wine on the table, 2 steaks just served. Amelia's head was slightly bowed, smiling softly. Ben was speaking to her in a low voice, his expression relaxed like nothing had ever happened. A few seconds later, he leaned in and kissed her on the cheek. Amelia didn't flinch. She simply playfully hit his chest and kissed him back. I raised my phone and took a picture of that moment. Then I walked over. Quite the party. Good thing I'm hungry, too. My voice was cold, devoid of emotion, yet it landed like a thunderclap between them. Amelia's head jerked up, Her face went pale in an instant. Jack Thomas, you. Ben Harris froze for a second, too, but quickly tried to act casual. He stood up and said lightly, Jack Thomas, don't misunderstand. We were just... I interrupted with a cold laugh, raising my phone and showing them the photo. Is this your idea of a misunderstanding? Amelia staggered, shaking her head desperately. Jack Thomas, it's not what you think. I save your explanation. I looked at her icily. Amelia Cross, I thought we had cleared this up. Turns out your so-called repentance and change were just an act, weren't they? Her lips trembled, tears spilling out. No, it's not like that. I just felt lonely, so you ran back to him again. My voice was still calm like dead water, but it carried a bone-deep chill. You always have a reason, Amelia. But have you ever thought about whether I'd still believe any of them? Ben Harris tried to interject. Jack Thomas, let me just... I turned to him with a sharp gaze. Don't say a word. Don't think I didn't give you a chance. This time, you both brought it on yourselves. I turned and walked away, never sparing another glance at Amelia. Behind me, I heard a chair scrape back, and then Amelia's tearful voice echoed. Jack Thomas, please don't go. Let me explain. But I didn't stop. Her explanation meant nothing to me anymore. Back home, I organized the photos on my phone, printed them along with previous chat records and evidence, and laid them neatly on the table. When Amelia returned, her face was still streaked with tears. She opened the door, surprised to see me sitting in the living room. Then she rushed over and grabbed my hand. Jack Thomas, I know I messed up. Please give me one more chance. I didn't mean to. I really just raised my hand to cut her off and pushed the documents on the table toward her. This is what you promised me. She froze, her hands trembling as she flipped through the photos and records. Tears immediately streamed down her face. Jack Thomas, I didn't mean to. I was just so afraid. Afraid? I leaned back in my chair, staring at her panicked face with a cold smile. Afraid of what? Of being alone? Or of losing someone who used to tolerate everything from you? I know I was wrong. I really do. She dropped to her knees, clutching my leg, her tears falling hard on the floor. Please give me one more chance. I'll change. I swear. I looked down at her, my eyes cold. Amelia Cross, don't you think it's a little too late for that? It's not too late. She shook her head frantically, her voice trembling with desperation. As long as you're willing to forgive me, I'll do anything. I swear I'll never make the same mistake again. Enough. I forcefully pulled my leg from her grasp, my voice devoid of emotion. Amelia Cross, this isn't something you can fix. I've made my decision. We're getting a divorce. Her body froze. She stared at me blankly as if she hadn't understood what I just said. Divorce? No, Jack Thomas. We can't get divorced. We can still make it work. I can change. I really can. But I can't. I stood up and looked down at her. Amelia Cross, I no longer want to be in this relationship. What you destroyed wasn't just trust, but my patience, too. She lunged forward, grabbing the hem of my shirt, crying hysterically. Jack Thomas, don't divorce me. Please, I can't live without you. I know I was horrible. I know I hurt you. But you can't just give up on me. Looking at her in such a wretched state made my chest ache, but I knew there was no longer any meaning in continuing this marriage. Amelia Cross, I've already let go, I said calmly. Into the moment you chose to betray me over and over again. Her sob suddenly stopped. A few seconds later, she bolted into the kitchen, pulled out a knife, and pointed it at her wrist. If you go through with the divorce, I'll die right in front of you. My heart tightened, but not a flicker of emotion showed on my face. Amelia Cross, do you think doing this will change anything? She raised the knife with trembling hands, tears streaming uncontrollably. Jack Thomas, I really can't live without you. I walked over, took the knife, and set it aside. If you truly want me to stay, learn to love yourself first. Not use something like this to threaten me. Her body collapsed completely onto the floor. Her cries were sharp and desperate, enough to break a heart, but I didn't look back. I returned to the bedroom and closed the door behind me. She cried all night, but I had already made up my mind. This marriage was beyond saving. There was no going back. The divorce process had begun. Amelia Cross was like a lost soul, trying everything to win me back. But the more desperate she became, the more unwilling Ben Harris was to let go. Ben Harris asked to meet on a Friday afternoon. His text was blunt. "There are some things I think you should hear. We're both men. Let's settle this face to face." I didn't refuse. Lately, Ben Harris had become increasingly aggressive, trying to contact me through Amelia's friends, even threatening me indirectly. I knew this conversation was inevitable. At the cafe, he wore a black leather jacket, arms crossed on the table, eyes dark. "Jack Thomas, I'll be straight with you. Amelia Cross still loves you. She can't let you go. But pushing her to the edge like this, isn't that a bit unmanly?" I let out a cold laugh, leaning back. "Ben Harris, when did you earn the right to lecture me about morals? Did you forget you're the one who pushed her to the edge in the first place?" His face darkened, his tone turning aggressive. "I just didn't want to see her in pain. If you had forgiven her, none of this would have happened. Do you really care about how she feels?" I stared at him, voice calm but sharp. "Or are you just feeding your ego, trying to prove you're more important than me by using her?" My words hit home. His face turned pale, and he slammed the table. "Jack Thomas, don't push it. I've seen right through you." I stood, my gaze icy. "You disguise your selfishness as concern, pushing her toward ruin. I won't be part of this circus anymore." With that, I turned and walked out, leaving him alone at the table. A few hours later, I got a call from Amelia Cross's parents. Their voices were filled with panic. "Jack Thomas. Amelia. She's been in an accident." My heart dropped. "What happened?" "She went out driving with Ben Harris. They crashed in the countryside. They're both gone." Her mother's wailing on the phone was heartbreaking. When I arrived, police were still clearing the wreckage. A car had gone off the road, crashing through the guardrail and tumbling down a slope. Both of them died at the scene. Ben Harris was driving. The preliminary investigation pointed to speeding and improper control. I stood by the roadside, staring at the broken guardrail, emotions in turmoil. What happened between Amelia Cross and Ben Harris in their final moments? Perhaps only they knew. A police officer handed me a list of recovered belongings. Among them was Amelia's phone. When I unlocked it, the last message she had sent was to me. "Jack Thomas, I'm sorry. I know I hurt you too much. I wanted to say goodbye, but I was afraid you wouldn't even want to hear that. I don't want you to hate me. I just hope you live well." That message hit me like a hammer to the chest, stealing my breath. But more than regret, what I felt was release. It was finally over. A tragic ending. But from this moment on, I could finally begin again. A week after the accident, their funerals were held back to back. To rule out foul play, the police conducted an autopsy. It revealed that Amelia Cross was 3 months pregnant. The bitter irony, I hadn't been intimate with her for over 6 months. She had been acting the whole time better than me. I attended her funeral, standing among the modest crowd. I looked at her photo and felt nothing. Her parents were red-eyed and grief-stricken. Her mother clutched my hand, sobbing. "Jack Thomas, we're so sorry. It's our fault for not raising her right. It's all our fault. Uncle, Auntie, please don't blame yourselves." My tone was calm. What's done is done. The most important thing now is for you both to take care of yourselves. I didn't stay long. After standing quietly in front of her grave for a while, I turned and left. The way to truly say goodbye isn't to cling to the past, but to let go. Back home, I opened the windows. Sunlight streamed into the living room, lighting up the floor. I rearranged the space slightly, packed away everything related to Amelia Cross, and stored it in the basement. That was my final clean break with the past. The phone on the table buzzed. It was a message from my college senior, Emily Johnson. "I heard a lot has happened lately. Want to meet up and talk?" I looked at the message, hesitated for a moment, then replied, "Thanks for reaching out. I could really use a break these days." A few days later, we met at a quiet bookstore cafe. Emily handed me a warm latte and asked gently, "How have you been? Feeling any better lately?" "I'm okay," I smiled. "It was tough at first, but I'm slowly getting used to it." She nodded, her gaze soft but certain. "Starting over isn't that hard. You're a rational person. I believe you can do it." In that moment, I felt a sense of ease I hadn't experienced in a long time. She was right. Starting over wasn't that hard. In the days that followed, I focused on work and life. I kept up a daily routine of running, reading, and volunteering at a nearby community center on weekends. I even adopted a stray cat and named it Buddy, meaning new in Chinese, symbolizing a fresh start. Sometimes I would still think about Amelia Cross, but those memories no longer hurt. Her departure was an ending, but my life still had to move forward. One morning during a run, I watched the sun slowly rise in the distance, its warm light bathing the entire city. I stopped, took a deep breath, and felt myself surrounded by a long-lost sense of strength. This was the beginning of my new life.